The best news of all was that Isabel, Juliana, and Margarita, my best friends, would also be joining me at this new school. Isabel's family was not well off financially. She confessed to us that if this school hadn't opened so close to us, she wouldn't have been able to attend that year. Juliana's family, on the other hand, was quite affluent, perhaps too much so to live in that neighborhood, and they had considered enrolling her in a private school since it would have involved a daily trip to the city anyway. But the school opened, this newly created secondary school, and we stayed together. I wish it had never happened. We were a few months into that first year of secondary school when Isabel began acting a bit strange with us. She would leave early, disappear at times, stand us up when we agreed to meet to do homework, and make up excuses to stop hanging out with us, even though we all helped her when, for example, it involved going to a place where we would spend money. The strangest thing of all was that there seemed to be someone who perhaps was changing her. We initially assumed it was a boy, and according to us, we confirmed it because during recess, we could see the figure of a young man, or rather a man, watching us from a distance. Isabel actually exaggerated her intention to ignore him and even changed the subject when we mentioned how bizarre it was what that guy did, always about 200 meters from the schoolyards, which were unfenced by the way, and he would watch us intently without making any movements. There was always a sufficient distance not to recognize his features. The school was located at the end of a street where there were no houses or shops yet, and behind it, there was a hill leading to some mountains. They say there were ranches in that direction a few kilometers away, but the truth is that from the school all you could see was uninhabited land. Isabel never told us anything about it, not a word, even though it was evident that she knew him in some way. She knew something about him that we didn't. In December, Isabel disappeared. We said goodbye after school as if nothing had happened, but she never made it home. In the following days, Margarita, Juliana, and I came up with countless theories in our heads, yet none of them fully convinced us. Isabel thought only of helping her family in one way or another. She wouldn't have abandoned them for any reason. None of us wanted to mention the man we had seen watching us. 5 days later, they found Isabel's body about 400 meters from the school, at the bottom of a ravine behind the hill. She was killed by having her head crushed with a stone. Contrary to what was initially speculated and even reported in the news at the time, she had not been sexually assaulted. Someone killed her there, without any apparent reason or motivation. Although we were already on vacation by then, a ceremony was held at the school which we all attended. We also collected money to help her family. When we delivered it, I remember her mother well. She told us about the dreams Isabel had been having for months. Dreams in which a man with a blurry face took her away, and she, unable to move or speak, was unable to ask for help. I don't know if these dreams she shared with her mother were actually a reflection of what she was experiencing in reality. I don't know if what she saw in her dreams perhaps started to haunt her during the day. And I don't know what we saw, but after they told us this, Margarita began to deny everything shortly after. I don't know what you're talking about. We never saw anyone, she told us. It was just our imagination, nothing more. And out of nowhere she stopped hanging out with us. It was just Juliana and me trying to survive that grief, in that stage of our lives, after losing our best friend in the most horrible way we could imagine. The rest of the year was difficult. Every second was hard. In the third year, for a moment we were able to forget it, until that day during a seemingly normal recess. Alejandro, a boy from our class who was permanently in love with Juliana, was talking with us. About 60 meters away from us was Margarita and her friends, the ones she started hanging out with after she left our little group. Amidst the laughter and silliness, I felt a chill. I sensed a gaze. I turned to look at Margarita, and she, pale, nodded her head to signal me to look toward the hill. There was that man watching us. Close enough for us to feel his horrifying gaze, but at a distance where, once again, we couldn't recognize his face. But it was him, we were sure. It was the same tall silhouette. We took her to the office since we didn't have a nurse, and Margarita ran after us. It was the same man. We had no doubts, and even though we weren't certain who he was or if he had anything to do with what happened to Isabel, there was something about that sight that terrified us almost to paralysis. The feeling in my chest that day when I saw him, I will never forget it, and I hope I never feel it again. The next day he was there again, but there was no way to accuse him, to explain that somehow we knew he was connected to what happened to our friend. On the third day he returned once more. Juliana called her mom to pick her up and she never came back to school, even though we were in the middle of the school year. She transferred to a private school in the city and, in fact, never spoke to us again. Left alone, I ended up joining Margarita's group, but faced with what we were experiencing, with what scared only the two of us during almost every recess, we ended up separating and sticking together, just the two of us. In the last months, we stopped going out to the yard during recess for fear of seeing him there again. In fact, when I entered high school, I preferred to take a long route that made me lose 20 minutes rather than pass by that street, in front of the secondary school, out of fear of seeing that man with the blurred face from afar. Margarita went to a different school and little by little, our contact dwindled to exchanging a few likes on Facebook and birthday greetings. However, not long ago, while already in college, I started having dreams about Isabel and the vision of that man in the distance, an image that still terrified me even though I'm an adult now, and it ruined my days completely when I dreamed of him. One of those days, at around 4 in the morning, I was awakened by a message on Messenger. It was Margarita. The message included a link to a news story that some of you might have seen recently, about a girl who died a few hours earlier in a car accident. It's Juliana, the message said, and I didn't ask how she knew because the report didn't mention any names, but by morning I had confirmed it. There was no alcohol involved in the accident, according to the report. Just a girl who apparently lost control of her vehicle and crashed head-on into a retaining wall at high speed. In that Facebook post, some idiot, some curious person who approached the accident and for some reason took a picture of Juliana, of her body, posted it in the comments. I suppose the person was quickly reported and blocked from reposting it because I never came across that horrible image again. I'm afraid to ask how Margarita knew who it was. I'm afraid to ask her if she's also been dreaming of this man or if she's seen him again. And I know and want to believe it was an accident, but I have an irrational fear, I know, thinking that this man, that thing, could have something to do with it. A completely irrational, unfounded fear that won't let me live. I know it might seem ridiculous, and I know many will say it has nothing to do with the group or the theme, but thank you for allowing me to express it. It is a great help to me, especially every time I dream of that figure watching me close but far enough away that I can't recognize its face.